A very good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to you all to the 5th edition of the World Coffee Conference 2023. The event is organized by the International Coffee Organization in collaboration with the Coffee Board of India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of Karnataka, and Government of India, and the theme for this year being Embracing Sustainability through Circular Economy and Regenerative Agriculture. We have our first session for today, which is Creating Coffee Community, Cafes and Micro Roasters by Ms. Lee Safar, who's the founder of Global Coffee Small Business Consultant, who's going to be talking about the opportunities for coffee businesses within the booming Indian coffee value chain to learn from the challenges from now established coffee industries like Australia and America faced in the evolution of their growth into mature markets. Ms. Lee Safar is a 20-year veteran of the Australian and American specialty coffee industry and the founder of Map It Forward and Elixir Specialty Coffee. Lee is a business development consultant to specialty coffee businesses around the world, host and producer of highly acclaimed coffee industry podcasts, the Daily Coffee Pro podcast and Map It Forward Middle East podcast, and providing education sessions focused on business and career development within the coffee industry worldwide. I now welcome Ms. Lee Safar onto the stage. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's a big honor for me to be here today. Thank you for coming. Do you think we could get the presentation? They just started it at the wrong place. It's okay, we're getting there. You've now all seen the presentation before you've heard it. So just as we get started, I want to get a feel for the room. So could you put your hand up if you're a coffee producer? Awesome. If you are a coffee exporter or importer? If you are a coffee roaster? If you are a cafe owner? If you are something else? Wow, a lot of something else. So, could you tell me which of you are in marketing? Okay, who's in sales? What are the rest of you doing? I'm dying to know. Who put their hand up and wasn't in any of those categories? Tell me, please. The pharmaceutical chemical industry. Wow, welcome. Okay. Folks, a pharmaceutical company that roasts their own coffee to put in their own cafes on site for their own staff. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I have goodies for you. So I want to encourage you guys to engage. We have some prizes down here. Coffee from Australia, from my different, you'll hear about who roasted them. So when you engage, I'm going to invite you to come up and grab a prize. So please come up and grab whatever you want off this table. So, folks, we are here today to talk about creating coffee community for cafes and micro roasteries. But we're going to actually take a look at it on more of an industry-wide scope. So I would encourage you, if you have any questions that are relevant to the current slides, feel free to ask. If you can keep them to the end, there's going to be a Q&A session. Now it's not working. There we go. So the way today is going to operate, we are going to start with the presentation, we're going to have a discussion question, and then we're going to do a Q&A. a little bit about me. Before we start, does anyone here listen to the podcast, the Daily Coffee Pro? Okay, you will have a QR code to make sure that we fix that later. I'm a business coach. I've been in the coffee industry for a long time. My background is genetic science. I swear there's an actual lead into how I got from being a geneticist into being in the coffee industry for so long. But I have found my way into going from barista to business owner to business consultant, and now travel the world doing that. I was raised in the Australian coffee industry after being in the corporate world for a very long time, and then went and did coffee mostly in America and in the UK, and Dubai is going to be my new home as of November, which is very exciting. I've had a number of small businesses. Some have been extremely successful, some have not, and all of that has informed why I am able to do what I do and why my clients find so much success. My businesses at the moment are Mapper Forward and Elixir Specialty Coffee. For those of you who know Elixir Specialty Coffee, it is a bottled beverage. You'll hear more about it in a little while. It is a bottled beverage. We are the only people in the world that make it. It is the only beverage that exists of its kind. I build businesses that are disruptive, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why that's important for the Indian coffee community in a little bit. By the end of this presentation, I'm going to figure out how to use this very simple gadget, I promise you. There we go. So Mapper Forward consists of the podcast, the consulting business, and our education platforms. I want to let you know a little bit about the framework, our vision, mission, and values, so that you understand why you should believe anything that I'm saying today. Awesome. Our values: integrity, openness, curiosity, and authenticity. Whenever you're building a community, it's important for everybody to understand the value structure of what you bring to that community. For Mapper Forward, it's important for us to define and to let you know exactly what we stand for. These 4 values influence every decision that we make, and down to the conversations we have on the podcast, the clients we take, how we inform every presentation that we give, all our education programs, etc., etc. Our mission is conspiring to each other's success. That's the tagline of our business. And so when we say we conspire to each other's success, the hallmark of everything that we do is about building community. However, in the coffee industry, the idea of building community is a term that everybody uses, but we don't really have a definition for it. And we're going to look at that in a little while. Our vision. Our vision for Mapper Forward is that we, in the long term, want to contribute to building an industry of responsible businesses with responsible pricing models. Who in the room can identify with dysfunctional pricing models in the coffee industry? Awesome. So let's talk about what community is. There are a number of definitions for community. The first one from the dictionary says, a group of people living in the same locality and under the same government. The next one, the district or locality in which such a group lives. And the third one is a group of people having common interests. Now, all of this is very sterile. None of this really talks about the essence of what a community is and what brings a community together. What we're here today to talk about is not just the definition of what makes a community, but what brings it alive and what causes it to fail, which is an important part of the conversation. A really important Mapper Forward question that we always ask: what does success look like at the end of this whatever it is we're doing. The end of this meeting, the end of this presentation, the end of this consulting work together, the end of this project. So we call these success markers. And we have 2 success markers for this presentation. We're going to check in with these success markers at the end of the presentation, but I want to highlight them right now. So our first success marker for this presentation is to a better understanding of what a thriving coffee community and economy looks like. Our second success marker is to get insight into how India may be able to organize its communities differently to avoid the challenges other countries have made as emerging markets. Now, is it in question at all whether India is an emerging coffee market? Who thinks India is not an emerging market? Excellent. Because I thought we all knew that this was a fact, I'm not going to go about the business of establishing the facts of that. India is a booming specialty coffee market and coffee market. But I would say that the coffee part of it, the commodity and commercial market, has been booming for some time. It's the specialty market that's on the way to booming right now. Has anyone here heard of an S-curve? Yeah, one? Yeah? Okay. So an S-curve pattern of innovation is one way of describing how a product or a business will have a life cycle. So an S-curve pattern of innovation highlights the facts that an industry, product, or business model evolves over time until the maturity stage is reached. Let's take a look at what those different stages are. Now, this here, this S-curve, this is the ideal curve that the business's or the product's trajectory is in its life cycle. In stage 1, we look at early adopters. Who has an iPhone here? Is iPhone big in India? Okay, what about Samsung? Samsung is bigger? Who has a Samsung? Looks like nobody's got a phone here. Put your hands up. Who has an Android phone? Okay. Do any of you wait in line the day that those products are released? God, I have so much respect for this room. Thank God none of you are those people. Oh, you do? You wait in line? Oh, okay, excellent. I'm not a hater of people who wait in line for things, but the early adopters when a product goes to market, these are people who are usually lining up for iPhones and Galaxies. These are the people who are passionate. They are cult worshippers of a brand or a product. They are the first ones who pre-order things. These are the people who help establish markets. Now that's from a customer perspective. But let's look at it from a business perspective. When any industry is being established, you usually have a small group of very passionate entrepreneurs who get all the training, they go visit all the expos, they go visit every famous cafe in every coffee drinking city. They're the ones who are in their garages tinkering and deciding that they're going to open those cafes. Now, these people here at this stage of building an industry, these are the people who the industry's backs are built on. They're usually referred to as the godfathers or the godmothers of the industry. And they do all the heavy lifting in building an industry. They are also usually the most ridiculed by the time we get to the top of the curve. And they are the least respected by the time the rest of the industry has built itself on it. So if you know people who have been involved in building the community and the industry at that part, they are your elders. It doesn't matter how old they are the elders of your community, and they are the elders of this industry that you are operating in. And I would encourage you and invite you to recognize all the hard work that they put in for nothing, so that we can enable the rest of the industry to have any chance at surviving. They are the elders of a community, and it's important that they get recognized. Stage 2. this is when most people are realizing the early adopter business owners and customers, they were onto something. And now everybody wants to get in on the action. And everyone thinks that there is, or has reason to believe that there is going to be profitability involved. So everybody jumps in on it. Now remember, for every business to exist and be successful, it requires customers. A successful S-curve means that the industry that is being established is doing a great job to bring in customers, and that's where marketing comes in. So we're going to talk a little bit later about what happens when you don't have that, but when an industry puts the effort into bringing customers to the entire industry, not just a specific business, then what you do is you give an industry a chance at success. What happens far too often in the coffee industry is people focusing on their own individual businesses. You're not focusing on community. You're not focusing on industry. And the term community and industry can be interchanged in this scenario. So if you are focusing on not just what's good for you, but what's good for the long-term trajectory of making sure that my business can survive and my career can have viability for the next 25 years if I want to, then it becomes about more than just you. Then it becomes about the viability of an entire industry. Are we starting to get an understanding of why community might be important? Yeah? Great. Usually at this phase 2, in number 2, there's a lot of what's called VC funding, venture capital funding. So this is where people in stage 1, who are the early adopters, who put in, they mortgaged their houses, they used all the capital from their friends who invested in their businesses, they made next to nothing because they didn't have anyone, they had to establish their customers for themselves. Then the Instagram famous people come in and they start businesses with venture capital money. And this is where things start to get a little interesting. This is where people start to think, oh, the industry's booming. What could go wrong? I'm going to show you in a little bit what could go wrong. And here we have stage 3, where we reach a mature market. This is when the customer base has decided, okay, we're going to keep you specialty coffee. We like you. We enjoy the products that you give us. And then the boom starts to level out, and the businesses who have earned the right to survive will survive. But the number of businesses entering the market is no longer accelerating at the same rate as in stage 2. Are there any questions about this S-curve? Sure. Sure. So in stage 3, this is where the market is starting to reach maturity. And I just want to say something. S-curves can be built on top of S-curves, which can be built on top of S-curves. So this is the first cycle of the S-curve, right? This is where, and it can go from a space of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. Usually what happens in specialty coffee, a market is established over, say, 20 years. In the third stage, that market is starting to find stability. We no longer have the people who suffer from FOMO coming in and opening businesses and then going bust and doing all of that. The market starts to reach stability. And what happens also is that you have an established neighborhood cafe, like everyone's got their favorite cafe, it's established, it's there. Anyone who comes in is going to further saturate the market, so someone will drop off. So it starts to find an equilibrium. Okay? Can anyone think of some markets around the world who have actually followed this S-curve in the coffee industry? Vietnam, with specialty coffee? Not with specialty coffee. With commodity coffee, definitely. Commercial coffee. Australia, come up and grab a prize, sir. Ma'am, come up and grab a prize, please. Yes, sir. Again? No. We're going to talk about Dubai in a second, but please come up and grab a prize. Yes. United Kingdom, yes. Come up and grab a prize. One more, yes. The lady up in the back, sorry. Correct, come up and grab a prize. And France, actually not. It is actually, that's a really interesting one. I didn't think of France, but France has not. But please come up and grab something. Okay. So, there are a number of different ways that an innovative market or product can end up creating, or their adoption curve can start looking. An example that is not this is like a failure to launch. So let's say on a product level, you launch a product, you put it out in the market and nobody buys it. That means there's been no adoption. What we're going to talk about here is boom bust. And this is very interesting, especially for the gentleman who talked about Dubai. Dubai is going to be my new home. Dubai is a coffee market that I find incredibly fascinating, the same as Saudi Arabia and the same with India. These three markets are incredibly interesting right now because you're all kind of about the same place at where you're getting to. So, oops, we're in a complicated relationship, this thing and I. Okay, there we go. So, in this curve, stage one for the early adopters is very short. You'll notice here, see how long this early adopters phase is? Now what happens here is that these people have cultivated knowledge, they've cultivated customers, they've cultivated an understanding of the supply chain. The foundation on which the industry and the community is being built is solid. The community is the key word. Here, there are people coming together to learn from each other. There are people coming together to understand what they don't know. There are people coming together to build relationships across the supply chain. There are people coming together to make mistakes. There are people coming together to support each other. There are people coming together to challenge each other. That's what happens at the beginning of an S-curve that has a slow build. However, here, you've got about 1 year to do that. 2 years max. Can anyone think of why this would be different than the first one? Yes. Yes, you. Right. Not the same expertise, not the same investment in all of those things. Yeah. More research than before. In what? Right. So doing the research based on what other markets had done. Who do you think's doing that research? Anyone else? Who do you think, because you're right, and please both of you come up and grab something. There are people who have decided that the market will be viable other than coffee people, other than people who are passionate? Who are the people who are deciding that? Sir? Customers? So customers investing in the growth of the industry, is that what you're saying? Without the backing of technology and the foundation. That's the second step after this. There's something before that. Please come up and grab something. Yes, sir. No, this is completely separate from this. Yes, sir. Investment from financial? That's definitely part of it. Come up and grab something. Yes, sir.
The government.
The government?
The policy makers, actually.
The policy makers, no. Yeah, I mean, yes, but no. They are a part of it. Come up and grab something, sir. It's marketing companies. So marketing companies who are hired by VC companies to test whether this will become a viable business, a viable industry. Have you ever seen, let's say, for example, a product that's new to market and you see it everywhere? You see billboards everywhere. You've never heard of this thing before. Nobody's ever had it before, but all of a sudden it's everywhere. That's what I'm talking about. Again? Brand promotion. Come up and grab something, please. Again? Impact. So they pay for the industry. That is the opposite of community. Sir? Again? Advertising agencies. Marketing and advertising agencies. Now, marketing and advertising is a really important part of the growth of an industry. But when a community is not established ahead of that, we end up getting what's called a boom bust. And we end up with massive corporates being the backbone of the industry. Now let's take a look at coffee for a second as a brand. Coffee as a brand has been defined by who? Around the world, who's defined the brand? When I say coffee, what's the first big corporate you think of? Starbucks? Someone before them? Not Blue Bottle.
Costa Coffee.
No. Nestle, thank you, sir. Nescafe.
Costa.
Not Costa, Nescafe. 1 in 7 cups of coffee that's drunk around the world is Nescafe. 3,000 cups of coffee per second. 3,000 cups of coffee per second. Because this industry was built off massive corporates, we now have the big challenge around the world of redefining the brand that is coffee. Because when I say coffee, anyone, what's coffee? Is it instant coffee? Espresso? Tell me another word you think of when I say coffee.
Filter coffee.
Filter coffee, roasted coffee, green coffee, all of these things are coffee. We don't have a definition, a clearly defined understanding of what the word coffee means. And so we all, as a community, in each of our different industries, now have to define what coffee means for our customers. It's hard for them, and it's hard for us. But this, when we're now looking at specialty coffee, like what's happening in Dubai, like what's happening in India, like what's happening in Saudi Arabia, what we have is people who are investing exorbitant amounts of money without putting the effort into building an industry and a community, building specialty coffee based off money rather than industry. And we don't yet know how it's going to end up. Stage 2, because of this very, very fast rise, I say fast, but it's 10 years. Saudi has been establishing itself for about 10 years now. What you end up with is a market that's fed by marketing hype, capital injection, government injection for the gentleman up the back. So yes, it is a part of the story, and FOMO from entrepreneurs. So what happens, what causes this here? What causes business owners to decide that they're going to open a business a lot of the time is FOMO, fear of missing out. I love coffee. My friends opened a cafe. I don't want to miss out. My parents don't think that I'm going to amount to anything, so I'm just going to go and open a cafe. Can anyone relate to having heard that story a million times over? And so what ends up happening is because we haven't built a community to support the growth of an industry, we haven't put the effort into establishing a customer base. So while this is happening, you've got people mortgaging their houses, drawing down from their family's wealth, opening all of these businesses, creating a false industry. And customers get very excited by, their curiosity is piqued. So customers decide, I want to go check out this specialty coffee thing. So they go and they check it out, and then they turn around and they say, why am I paying 3 times here what I can pay for commercial coffee? Because we didn't put the effort into educating them and establishing the industry. We didn't put the effort into building industry professionals who know how to talk to customers. We didn't put the effort into building a community of people that invite the supply chain to participate in the building of our community. Excuse me, sorry. Stage 3 is the crash and burn. And when I look at different industries around the world that have tried to establish themselves, the challenge is, how do we avoid the crash and burn? Because what happens is the disproportionate number of businesses to established consumers that trust what we're telling them and what we're selling them means that all of these businesses here that have built themselves into becoming something will all end up failing. The majority of them will end up failing. And we have to avoid that at all costs, because the ripple effects back into the supply chain, the ripple effects always end up landing on the producer. And the producer is the one who struggles to recover as their coffee turns up in ports, as businesses are collapsing, and they don't end up getting paid for all of their work. Any questions about this? Who thinks that this might be a possibility for India? Again? Do we have a microphone? Because that's important. Could you pass that microphone to him, please? I want us to hear this, please.
Hello. Ma'am, the small businesses which are trying to copy-paste the other success, they are failing in a drastic manner. I have seen, I'm from Chhattisgarh, and I have a cafe there. And I've seen many people trying to copy-paste the other people's success. They are trying to copy the others' recipes and menus, and they are failing because they are just focusing on the Instagram matter rather than building a community and providing a good quality taste and educating their customer.
Who agrees with this? For everybody who's in the other hall that's watching, everybody in this room pretty much put their hand up. And this is my deep concern for our industry in many geographies around the world. So I hope you're starting to understand why it's important for us to focus on the slow build rather than the FOMO. Instant gratification is a part of our culture these days. The winners will be the people who look for delayed gratification. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, and why it's important for us to understand the dynamics of how building businesses flow and why it's important for us to build slowly and look for long-term success. Sir, please, did you get something? You'll do something later. I just don't want you to miss out. All right. I want to be very clear about something. I am not an expert in the Indian coffee industry. I am in love with your country, and thank you for your hospitality. And I am in love with everything that you guys are trying to do with the production of coffee. But I'm not an expert. I am an expert, however, in building businesses around the world in the coffee supply chain. And I am an expert in how we did it in Australia and how we did it in America. And we made some mistakes. Most emerging markets in coffee over the past 30 years seem to repeat the same mistakes. So even if their first S-curve is successful, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth S-curve that they keep trying to build on completely fails. And the reason this is devastating is because the real life ramifications are magnified throughout the supply chain, but the biggest one of them that I have experienced is that you only have a certain number of businesses that you can build and fail at before it destroys you. Please remember that. Building a business is going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself. Building a business is going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself, and even though it's going to teach you and show you those things, if you can cultivate the grit to stay for the course, it is the best thing you will ever do. It will teach you how to have the best character in the world. It will teach you how to be kind to people. It will teach you how to support other people. But if you don't understand how to do that well, you are going to be a part of destroying our entire industry with the FOMO. We're going to go through some of those common mistakes that people make, well, that industries make. And number one is not building together as a community. Remember our definition of community. The part that I would add to that is a group of people having common interests working together to foster growth for the current and future participants in the industry. Real leaders, no matter when you enter the industry, real leaders are not looking just to build for today. They're looking to build for the people who are coming in 10 years from now. They're looking to build a legacy. There's a really great saying that I heard. The wise leader plants a tree knowing he will never get to sit under it. And that's a very powerful thing. When you build a tree knowing that other people are going to get to come and sit under it and you'll never get that privilege, that's a real leader that's thinking about the future. I'm going to demonstrate to you with my humans how we used community to build products. This is not random, these products that are down here. They are here to demonstrate something for you. The first person, you're getting to know her. The second person is my dear friend Nawar Adra. Nawar is the owner of Eker and Stitch Coffee. Carlos Arcila, some of you may know of CoffeeNet. Has anyone here heard of infused coffees? Right. These guys are the birthplace of infused coffees. So the samples that are here are some of theirs. And we have Todd McCarthy. Todd is the owner of Full Spectrum Roasters. Now I'm going to show you how the four of us worked together in a community to elevate each other's products. And a bit of a backstory. I lived in America for most of the last 15 years, up until 2021, backwards and forwards. When I came back, the number one thing I learnt in America about building businesses is that people don't build them together. Successful businesses are not built together. Successful businesses are built when a number of people come together to help each other in each other's businesses. So I came back to Australia and I said, you guys, we have to teach people how to be a community here, and we have to teach them how to do it in a profitable way. This 3% net profit rubbish that happens in our industry, and for those of you who don't know and are thinking of starting a cafe, 3% is what people can aim for these days if they're lucky. Net profit. Think twice at this stage about opening a cafe. But I wanted us to open businesses and help each other rise in a way where we were all successful. So I got them together and I had a conversation with them. And I said, we need to work as a community. Let's talk about Noir. Noir is perhaps the most innovative, forward-thinking leader in the coffee industry in Australia from a retail coffee perspective. He owns cafes, he owns a co-roasting facility, he owns a roastery, and he has these lollipop bags. This is a lollipop box. In this lollipop box, you have really pretty coffee drip bags. The coffee that's inside them is infused coffees that are grown by Carlos Arcila at CoffeeNet. Noir has other drip bags. These are Ethiopian coffee. These are not coffee that are grown by CoffeeNet. But the way that Noir supports Carlos's business is by creating a lollipop box that nobody else in the world is doing. And there's 10 bags in there, and every coffee that's in there is from CoffeeNet. There's banana flavored, it's not flavored, it's infused. So banana infused coffee, lulo infused coffee, a peach infused coffee, a whole bunch of different ones. Do you think he's selling this to mostly the specialty coffee industry or to the general public? 100%, the general public. So when we started approaching our group of people coming together and creating products, we were not creating products for the specialty coffee industry. We wanted to set the example of how do you create products that bring more people as consumers. So Noir started focusing on retail. He also has a B2B business, but this is where his focus is. Noir and I have a deep history in working together. Our last jobs as baristas were at the same espresso machine at Harry's Cafe in Bondi, and we were both starting our businesses at that espresso machine. And we used to swap branding pictures, and we used to say, so where are you going to base your business? It's a magical story. But you'll notice that Noir is wearing the same t-shirt that I'm wearing. Noir, when we were the official podcast partner at World of Coffee Dubai, Noir came with me and supported me through that journey. He was there for 2 weeks with me. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Of course, I know why I'm getting emotional, because he came with me there. And I had never set up a booth at a show before. Noir came, he left his business for 2 weeks, and he supported me through the whole thing. We had his products there as well, but he was there to support me. As I got on the world stage as a podcast for the first time, we were the first official podcast of any expo anywhere in the world. That's how he supported my business. Every time we do a tour around Australia, Noir's doing it with Map It Forward. Whenever we're doing workshops, Noir's the first one to say, use my place. Whenever we want to talk about something that I can't have a conversation with on the podcast, because it's a really hard conversation, check out the series about the barista mafia. There is a barista mafia that's operating. He and I witnessed it together. I had to have a hard conversation on the podcast about it. He came on the podcast with me. A part of his business, Eker, he manufactures drip bags for other companies. Todd McCarthy, coffee roaster, uses Noir to manufacture his drip bags. So these are 4 people who are building their businesses together. Carlos supplies us, and I'll go into that in a second. Carlos supplies us coffee for Elixir Specialty Coffee, and I'll tell you more in a second. So, CoffeeNet. This photo, not CoffeeNet, Todd McCarthy. Todd is wearing a CoffeeNet cap. He is at Origin with CoffeeNet to source coffee from them directly and to build content so that he can help promote the business. That's the relationship between Todd and Carlos. The relationship between Todd and Lee, I am a consultant. I have helped him establish, oh, there's no more bags. Yeah. This brand, Full Spectrum, when he went to build it, I worked with him for a year as a consultant on building this brand. It's just been released and it is going fantastically. Todd and Noir, as I said, Todd gets all of his drip bags manufactured by Noir. The famous Carlos Arcila from CoffeeNet. See the redness of those cherries? That's how you get the quality of what they're getting at CoffeeNet and getting such high prices. So it's pretty clear how Carlos and Noir work together and how Carlos and Todd work together. Carlos supplies Todd. Carlos and Lee work together because Carlos sponsors our podcast. He sponsors our events. Whenever we are going around the world, he's the first person to say, what does Mapper Forward need? That's how he sponsors Mapper Forward's business, but also he supplies us coffee for Elixir Specialty Coffee when we were operating in the United States and when we launch in Dubai in 2025. This lady here, she supports Noir's business by making sure that I mention all of their names in every room I walk in. Every room I walk in, I mention their names and they mention my name. Every business opportunity, I'm looking to see how we can make it a win for all of us. You can see that there's a demonstrated community between the 4 of us where we are not getting in each other's way. We are helping to rise together. You can see here, this is Noir and Shahen the Yeretzian, coffee scientist. This is at our booth at World of Coffee, and you can see in there, there's all of coffee of Noir's products. Noir didn't learn how, he knew more about Mapper Forward by the end of that than even I knew about Mapper Forward. And our booth ended up being the most popular booth at World of Coffee Dubai. It was the proudest moment. This is now the proudest moment, but at that time, that was the proudest moment of my career. And because of that, because of all of us working together, I get the deep privilege of making an announcement today that I only got confirmed yesterday, and you guys are the first to hear it. They don't even know it yet. But we have been confirmed as the official podcast partner of World of Coffee Dubai next year. Thank you. One, 2, 1, 2. Can you hear me? Yes. My point is, extraordinary things don't happen on your own. None of us are building little things. None of us are building expecting it to be successful quickly. We know this game. And nothing that we're building right now is the first thing that we've ever built. Learn how to build a map, and we'll talk about that in a second, but build a map that is going to have a long-term trajectory and find people who know how to build that with you. So you remember the mission that we were talking about before when we talked about values, vision, and mission? Conspiring to each other's success. And that is the cornerstone of a community, no matter how small your community is. My community, when it comes to these guys, we are 4 people. Look at the success that we're creating for each other. But then we are part of a larger community. And we work on helping people understand what you can achieve when you conspire to each other's success. So I have taken this statement is our tagline for our business. We don't do anything that is self-serving, but we don't do anything that loses us money either. We don't do anything that takes from somebody else's success. That's our values that have come into play there. And as you can see, we're demonstrating it. But because it's not being demonstrated in 1 year or 2 years, people don't think that it's possible. It's a slow build. Now, I would like to talk to you about a local example of somebody who is conspiring to a lot of people's success in her community, and I would like to invite Komal Sable to come up so I can have a chat with her. Now, I had the deep... Do we have a microphone? Okay, great. So I had the deep privilege of meeting Komal 2 months ago. Thanks to...
Is this working? Yeah.
There's a microphone there. Thanks to our mutual friend, Andrew Tolley. And as a part of my journey here, I got to spend a couple of days with Komal and Akshay at their farm. And I was mind blown. They have been on the podcast. You should check out the series on the podcast. But Komal, can you tell us a little bit about the South Indian Coffee Company? And just to be fair, folks, I sprung this on Komal this morning. She didn't know this slide was going to happen. And as I saw her this morning, I'm like, hey, by the way, do you mind coming up on stage so I can tell everyone how amazing you are? And she said, no, that's not going to happen. I've kind of forced her to do this. So Komal, can you tell us about your company, South India Coffee Company?
Yes, so South India Coffee Co. is a collaborative supply chain. We call it a collaborative supply chain because we work with producers, and I can see one in the room there, Himu, and he's been working with us since the day we started. And like him, when you say conspiring success, he's like, yeah, whatever you need, tell me what you need. And that kind of community building. So we do this. We do specialty coffee. We sell it all across the world. But the important thing that we're doing is we're putting the producers up in center, and we're telling their stories. So it's their hard work that is going on to the packaging. We're just a wheel that is putting it all together.
She's being very humble.
No. So all these people are making fantastic coffees, and I think the world needs to know about these Indian coffees, which is what we just put together, and the amazing coffees are made by the producers, like Himu here, sitting here.
Another part of and the reason why I say Komal is being humble, they put a lot of content out for open source learning.
Yeah.
They don't hide the information, so tell us why you do that.
Yeah, so I think coming from a tech background that we started, we've been working on Android for a really long time, and that is all about open source. Taking that concept, getting it to coffee, and trying to put as much information out there, which is tested, and then we put it out there for other producers, other coffee professionals to understand. So we started really simple, because I didn't know a lot about coffee. I started very simple by putting things on social media, but this was for my understanding, and it slowly became something that a lot of people needed to understand, and they started it kind of grew into a community. So open source things that are happening on the farm, we just put it out there. We tell what is working, what is not working. We give a real life scenario. So sometimes some experiments work, sometimes some don't, which is why they're called experiments. And in terms of open source, we are also doing like a tech platform, which is, I think, important for people to, especially producers and probably cafe owners as well, to know some things that are happening on the farm that, in terms of getting all the knowledge. So there's a platform called TechSig that we're doing which is a open source platform, getting all this information from legit
Data.
yeah,
Data points.
papers.
Yep.
And that information is out there for everybody to get hold of.
And where can they get a hold of it?
It's on our website, www.sicc.coffee.
Make sure you talk to Komal afterwards if you want those details. No, wait, I'm not done.
Oh, okay. I thought it's done.
I have an important question.
Yeah.
Why is conspiring to each other's success important for you as a business owner?
I think it's really important to work with each other. I feel the industry says it's working together, but I feel like we still have a lot more sharing to do. It can be in terms of processing, it can be in terms of how we are building the business together, and working with people who understand the vision. It's super, super important to work with the people who are kind of who understand what you're doing, and then they come forward. I keep looking at Himu over there because he has been an absolute rock star when it comes to, when we started, nobody knew us. And he was the one, he's like, whatever you want, Combs, we'll do. And now he is doing some fantastic coffees, and we try and push out as many coffees of his as possible. That is why it's important, because I think when we start the journey together and we see everybody grow together, the authenticity and I think the integrity in the business stays along for a long time. I think that is what creates a sustainable business.
Komal Sable, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for her.
Sorry, this was a really last minute thing. She literally told me this morning. So if I'm fumbling, it's all because of her.
Great. But Komal said some really interesting things there, right? We have people coming together, just offering to support each other. What do you think creates that first connection? Actually, I'm going to ask you. Yeah, well, why would you reach out and why would you offer your help to them? Can someone give him a microphone? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but this is a living demonstration here of why this happened. Go ahead.
So, hi, I'm Hemakirti. I run Krishnagiri Estate, and I'm a fifth generation planter. And the main idea for us was like, we weren't out there. And the specialty market was represented by less than 1% of the farmers in India.
Yep.
And since these guys had the tech expertise, so, but they had very less volumes with them as coffee. And they reached out to me. We had common interest in sports. And so we kind of connected and we started speaking about coffees. And so all the processes that I know, I've taught them, and what they know, they have taught me. So we kind of work together on every platform, when it might be social media or at the farm, backhand. So technically, like, when we connected to Komal, they were like, they had connects in UK, which I did not have.
So they had something that you
yes,
did not have.
that I did not
and
have.
you had something that they did not have.
Yes. So,
And how did you know that you would be each other's people?
sorry.
How did you know you would be each other's people? Because not everybody would be everybody's person, right? Is it a gut feeling? Was it their values?
Yeah, it's kind of same values we shared.
Yeah.
And we wanted to, the end story was we wanted to put out the best Indian coffees.
Yeah.
So whatever little micro lots we created, so we wanted to make sure only that reach the client. So we didn't want to push the bulk,
Yeah.
trying to get lucky with all the funds possible. No, we didn't want to do that. Kilo by kilo, we wanted to make sure
You
that,
built slow.
Yeah, and do it slow. We wanted an organic growth in this. So
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Are you guys seeing a theme? Thank you very much. Are you guys seeing a theme? He deserves it, let me tell you. Find your people. Find your people, build relationships with them. and be okay with starting a relationship with someone and deciding that they're not your people. Go and find your other people. But building businesses as groups of people together is the hallmarks of a solid community. It's the hallmarks of people who learn how to compete together but rise together. That's what creates a solid foundation as we were looking at the S-curve. And I've spent time with these people. They are good people. They have boundaries. They learn how to bring people into their community and help to conspire to their success. They're the most selfless people I've met in the industry and the most generous people I've met in the industry. They had no idea I was going to write this. This is me conspiring to their success. Okay? A lot of people will tell you, go get Instagram famous. Go build a YouTube channel. Go get everyone to look at you. I'm going to tell you some more mistakes that are in that realm. Not understanding the coffee value chain and how it operates locally and internationally. If you're investing all your time into learning how to be Insta famous and not attributing equally as much time into understanding this, you will fail. It is inevitable. You will fail. Because you were not in the coffee industry then. You were in the social media game. And you should get very clear about the difference between those two things. If you are opening a cafe or a roastery and you are not studying this, you are not really in this industry. And so I would encourage you to get to understand how the coffee value chain works for the value chains that you're a part of. I would encourage you to start conversations with people in other parts of the world. Learn from them. Ask them questions. Listen to the people who come onto our podcast and engage with them on LinkedIn. Find them. Ask them questions. They come on the podcast because they want to pass on their knowledge. They want to engage in the community. Are there any questions about our second mistake that many people in the industry make? Yes, sir. Do we have a microphone?
How do we go about finding more about the coffee value chain and how it operates locally and internationally? What would you recommend? Like, so for, if I wanted to find out more about how India's value chain operates, how the bean to cup process goes and how to add value to that system, how would I go about doing that?
It's a fantastic question. And so the question is, how do we go about finding out about the Indian value chain? Or the American coffee market, or what's happening in Saudi? Does anybody have any ideas? Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Reach out and I'd like to come visit you. But don't do that on your own. Go and find people who have the same curiosity as you and go together. Reach out together. Establish a coffee club where you get together either on Zoom or at a cafe once a week and you guys have a theme that you're going to discuss. And everyone goes and does a little bit of research about it and comes together and they learn together. And invite other people to join that if you want to. Go on field trips together. Listen to the podcast and find out who are experts. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. Try something new. The thing that I find that keeps communities separated is simply the opposite of FOMO. It's just fear, not a fear of missing out. It's just fear in general. What if the people that I reach out to think I'm dumb? What if they don't accept me? What if they think that I am taking up too much of their time? People like to teach. People like to share information. But having said that, on the other side of things, people in our industry seem to be very scared of sharing things like roast curves. Why? Why? We're all doing the same thing. So please, consider the fact that you will shorten the distance of your own learning when you can be generous with the knowledge that you have. Bring other people into your sphere who will teach you what they know, and you will make mistakes together. It is much more fun making a mistake with someone else that's making the mistake with you than making it on your own. Okay, any other questions about this? Yes, ma'am. Give us 1 second, sorry.
Hi, I wanted to ask, I'm from Mumbai, which now has a very, very robust coffee culture, especially in the area I'm in. And I agree with you completely about creating community. But I must ask from the business angle as well.
Yep.
When you source out and when you do the research, to get a premium or a specialty coffee brand in your cafe, and then it's available just 2 blocks down as well. So how do you stay on track to continue supporting the same community even though you lose your edge as a cafe by not offering something as special as when it started out? Or do you move to a different community? And I say this in the most I'm not trying to sound, overly capitalistic, but I'm also trying to sound very real
We're
about
in
how
business.
yeah
You're
how
allowed to
tough
sound
it is
capitalistic.
to be
100%.
a cafe in in a very populated city
Yeah.
where rent is very high. So I just want to understand, how do you keep your community and your edge as a business together if the specialty coffee that you've got in the first place is now available in almost every place down the road?
How many people here are familiar? Thank you for your question. How many people here are familiar with the Dubai market? Okay, thank you. So the Dubai market is very interesting because of its boom and its saturation, and then its kind of stagnation, right? So you have cafes that are opening for 3 different reasons in Dubai. This was massively eye-opening to me. The first reason is because they want to have a successful business. They want to build something and they want to create some legacy out of it. That's the first reason. That's the reason that most people in Australia build businesses. But there are 2 other reasons that we don't really have in Australia. The second is a vanity project. So they just want to be able to tell their friends, I've got a cafe, come have a cafe, come have a coffee. Who can think of what the third reason is? Money laundering. So, when you have 3 cafes, 3 different reasons for cafes opening, now all of a sudden the competition gets much more complicated. Because the person who's opening a business for reason number 1 usually has the least operating capital. They are going to do it the hardest. The other 2 reasons have a bottomless pit of money, and they never have to have any customers there. They are not in the same business as you, man. Even though they're operating at the same facility as you, they are not in the same business as you. You are in the business of hospitality and customer service. You're in the business of making coffee. They are in the business of laundering money and having a lounge room that's fancier than the one that they've got at home. Find a consultant that can help you hone in on who your customer actually is and build a story around that. And we're going to go into some more details about some of the other things that you need to make sure of. But your job is to outlive them. Not as a building. They're going to stay there forever. They need to stay there forever to continue their other practices. But the thing that operates inside of that building, that's what you're in the business of. And that's a different business to them. And we can have a chat afterwards if you like. The third common mistake that most industries make is not cultivating career paths with long-term projections. There are 4 main different roles you can play in an industry. Number 1 is as a business owner or an entrepreneur. Most people think, I love coffee, I'm going to open a business. If you're going to open a cafe or a roastery, your job is not coffee anymore. Your job is business. And you will spend 80% of your time on business and 20% of your time on coffee, if you're lucky. The reason I never opened a cafe is because I loved being a barista. And a barista in Australia is a different story than a barista around the world, not because of what we do differently, but because we have a highly established customer base. And baristas are rock stars in Australia, when I was coming up anyway. We got paid very, very well. And whenever we'd walk around our neighbourhoods that we worked in, it took us an hour to get down the street because everybody wanted to have a conversation with us. We spent the time building the relationships to keep people coming into the cafes. For some reason, that seems to have been lost. But if you can cultivate that relationship between your baristas and your community, I know the issue in Dubai is the barista mafia and all that other stuff that keeps going on, and that's for a whole other situation. If we ever come and do this talk again, you'll hear about that more. But your job is business. Your job is not coffee. Learn all the things you need to know about coffee before you open the business. Spend your time doing the next thing, becoming a coffee professional. Go be a barista, go be a roaster, go work on a coffee farm. Do some of those things all at the same time. And take the time while you're doing that to learn all the things that you need to learn so that when you go into business, your job is learning how to be in business. All the other stuff you've already learnt. Because being in business is going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself. And if you're going to do that and you're going to learn how to roast coffee at the same time, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. The other thing that you can be is a consultant. Now, when we teach coffee consulting, and we're the only ones in the world that teach people how to be coffee consultants, the first thing that we say is choose your niche. This term coffee consultant means nothing. You're a coffee roasting consultant. You're a business development consultant. You are a supply chain consultant. You are a cafe consultant or a menu consultant. Find your niche and your specialty and hone in on that. But you need to be an expert at something first. I'm a business development consultant in the coffee industry on a global level. Why? I've worked in many different countries in the coffee industry. I've built businesses in different countries in the coffee industry. And I've lived in many different societies, understanding what those cultures are in the coffee industry. Okay. And then there's innovation. Innovation requires 100% product development. You don't have time to learn any new things about the fundamentals of any industry then. Figure out which of these 4 that you want to be a part of at different parts of your career. You may want to be all of these things. Figure it out and map it. Number 4, not defining a workplace culture. This is something that is not really done in very many places at all. So having a workplace culture is important because your staff know what's expected of them. You know what you can expect from them. Your customers can understand what's expected from everybody in that workplace. Is this a fun, happy-go-lucky kind of workplace? Or is this a very serious, very technical cafe that I'm working into? When you define the culture of your workplace, you're telling everybody there what is acceptable behavior and non-acceptable behavior. Is bullying accepted in this workplace? In some places it is. In every place it shouldn't be. But because that's not defined in most workplaces, people try their luck. This is hard. And in economies like what's happening in Dubai, what's happening in Saudi, and what's happening here in India, if you go to the effort of establishing the culture of your workplace, and it's one that people feel safe in and they want to stay in, they go and tell their friends in the industry. And your place ends up becoming a preferred place of employment. So keep that in mind as you're building a business. Any questions about this? A lack of financial and business literacy. This is the number one mistake that most business owners make in every geography around the world. The number of business owners who have no idea how to read a profit and loss statement, or who have never heard of that term, profit and loss statement, or income statement, they mean the same thing, or balance sheet. It is a travesty that people have been operating businesses for 5, 6, 10 years, 20 years in one instance, and they have never had a profit and loss statement. And so when I ask them, is your business profitable? They're like, yeah, 100%. Okay, great, show me your profit and loss statement. We don't have one. Our accountant takes care of that. You don't know how to read your profit and loss statement? And it turns out that they have been operating as zombie businesses. A zombie business is a business that is like the Walking Dead. One thing that we as an industry need to understand is this particular term. Our businesses operate from month-to-month capital revenue. And so because we're high cash flow, we seem to think we're doing fine. But most businesses are stressing out about how they're going to make payroll by the end of the next month. That's because people don't know how to do this. People don't understand why it's important to have lines of credit. People don't understand why it's important to have good credit history. They don't understand how to read the difference between their assets and their liabilities. All of these things are super, super important, and what you should be doing before you open a business. Any questions about this? Yes, sir. You can tell me and I'll... Yep. So family businesses in India, yep. Is this about financial literacy, or is this about something else? Right.
But seldom they communicate to the stakeholders.
Okay.
Is it because of business literacy? So, for example, something in coffee commerce,
Yep.
or Kaveri Tea, or Industry Coffee, or the Kothas. These are the people, they are very actively involved in revealing this community creation activities to the international stakeholders. But not all of them. What is your message to this?
Okay, so now I get your question. So is the question, what's the fourth generation business owners, because they're inheriting businesses, may not necessarily have the business literacy that's required to run these businesses? Is that the question? Okay. Again, it goes to culture. What's the culture in the family? What's the culture of the way that businesses are being passed down? Is information being shared by the generation before them? If you know you're going to inherit a farm, if you know you're going to inherit a business, what responsibility do you have to go and get educated and informed? I say this to every one of my clients and every one of the people that I mentor. Don't leave your education to be somebody else's responsibility. Your failure is your own responsibility. Your success is your own responsibility. So if you know you're going to inherit something, if you know that you're going to end up having to run a business, the pressure of you being the reason that that business ends up going out of business, that's a lot to bear. But if the culture doesn't exist in your family where information is shared and that people are encouraged to be successful, go and find your community somewhere else. Go and find other producers who are in a similar situation to you and go and learn together. Come to somebody like me and ask me how you build a mastermind group, and I'll help you do that. Did that answer your question, sir? Race to the bottom. This concerns me, and this lends itself to what the lovely lady at the back was talking about with regards to Dubai. But this particular thing doesn't just happen in Dubai, it happens everywhere, including Australia, and it is something that will make an S-curve drop off quickly, or even over time. What happens is, a coffee roaster number one enters the market, and let's say that they've positioned their coffee, roasted coffee, at $30 a bag for specialty grade coffee. The next coffee roaster number two comes in and says, you know what? I'm going to offer $29. So the people, let's say 50% of the people who are using coffee roaster number one jump ship and they start using coffee roaster number two. That's fine. There's only two coffee roasters. Coffee roaster number three comes in and he says, I'm going to offer it at $28 a kilo. Okay. Still enough, 3 ways to go around. Coffee roaster number 4 comes in and says, I'm going to offer my coffee at $11 a kilo. Coffee roaster number 1, number 2, and number 3 lose 90% of their business to coffee roaster number 4. What do you think the next thing happens is? Someone comes into the market and says, screw you all, I'm going to offer it for $9 a kilo. This is what we call a race to the bottom. And it happens everywhere. And it is certain demise for an industry because now, and it happens with producers as well. And now we end up in a cycle that we can't get out of. Because there's always a bigger fish coming with more capital that will come and create bigger problems. Don't let this be something that happens in India. I'm sure it's already happening. Find a way as a community to stop it from happening because it is certain demise for the entire industry. It is why we are battling to establish specialty coffee all over the world. 3,000 cups a second for something like 36 cents a cup. How do we compete with that? With a cost of living crisis coming all over the world. Don't let this happen. And if you know that it's happening, if you are doing it, stop it. Please stop it. Because there's someone coming to take your business. And you won't find a way of recouping everything that you've lost. By the way, that's called predatory pricing. Number 7, cutting costs rather than focusing on increasing revenue. So what happens here is times get tight and people are worried about how am I going to make payroll next month? So what do? Is they go and they start cutting costs. They start saying, this coffee that I'm buying is too expensive, so I'm going to start buying cheaper coffee. Or the milk's too expensive, I'm going to go find a cheaper milk supplier. With cheaper comes less quality. Know that. But what ends up happening is people don't see the other alternative, which is increasing revenue. How do you sell more? How do you create more value for your customers so that they want to purchase more of what you've got? You do that by creating alternative revenue streams and telling a story that connects your consumer with your product. You do that by creating a product category that becomes affordable for them. So you're not buying necessarily cheaper products for your other product lines, but you create alternative product lines for the people who have to spend less money so that they don't go and spend that money somewhere else, they spend that money with you. Okay? Any questions about this? Awesome. Having unrealistic expectations. This is my favorite. People have unrealistic expectations of how quickly things are going to happen, how quickly they're going to get profitable, how quickly their cafe is going to get built, how quickly their coffee roasting machine is going to arrive, how quickly they're going to become the head barista, all of these things. Opening a business is going to take you twice as long to open, it's going to cost you twice as much, and you're going to earn half the amount that you think you're going to earn. This is the golden rule, and I can tell you with every one of my clients, it's almost to the cent double. Almost to the cent double what they expect. And I tell them every time we start, whatever you have budgeted, go find the capital just so that you have a line of credit for the same amount. And they're like, it won't happen, Lee, it won't happen. Just like it won't happen that the contract is going to take twice as long. It won't happen, my contract is awesome. 100% of the time, I'm not even kidding, 100% of the time, this is true. So please, if you're thinking about it, heed this warning. So now let me tell you about our map. The reason we're called Map It Forward is because we want to look at the long-term journey of building anything. We are anti-FOMO. We are looking at a 3-part journey across about 10 years for the life cycle of anything. That doesn't mean it ends at 10 years. It means that when you become an expert at something after 10 years, it's time to continue to evolve and grow and build things. So this applies for whether you're a barista, whether you're a cafe owner, whether you're doing anything that's hard. We break it up into 3 parts. The first part here is the first 2 years. We call this the puppy years. Why? Because you're excited little puppy when you're doing something new. You're happy and you're like the adrenaline's going and everybody's excited for you, and so you're learning everything. This is where you're establishing and mastering the fundamentals of the new thing that you're doing. If you're building a new business, you are learning how to build a new business. You're learning who your customers are and who they aren't. But it is so exciting. And during this phase, your motivation is skyrocketing. You are highly motivated during this time. Anybody was to tell you you're not going to be successful, you'd laugh them in the face. If anyone was going to tell you that you're going to run out of energy, you would laugh at them. You would tell them they were crazy. Then, the hardest part of your journey is going to show up. And that part of the journey is what we call the mid-career years. And it goes from year 2 to year 5, sorry. It goes for 3 years. Now, this part of the journey is when all of that shine has gone away. You're no longer excited that you've inherited the coffee farm because you're the person who day after day has to go out there and do everything that needs to be done. You're the person who has to show up at the espresso machine when your staff have called in sick. You're the person who has to go and find money when all the capital has run out. This is the rinse and repeat part. This is where there's no more shiny, shiny. No one's clapping you on. No one's telling you you're going to make this, pal. You have to be your own cheerleader. If you can survive this, if you can cultivate the grit that's required to survive the mid-years, it is roses after that. In a different way, it doesn't mean it's not hard, but here and here is what I call the easy hard work. Here is the hard work. This is where business is going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself. It's going to tell you your relationship to fear. It's going to tell you your relationship to pain, your relationship to shame, your relationship to being embarrassed, your relationship to asking for help. That is when the hard work starts. If you can lean in and you can embrace that journey, this part is where I learnt about karma. I learnt here that if I could be generous to this part of myself, as a business owner, this is where I got all the rewards. But I had to earn it. You cannot pay for the rewards that come during that part of the journey. That part of the journey is where you end up on an international stage, talking to a group of people who are highly engaged and want to have beautiful careers for themselves and beautiful businesses for themselves. I couldn't pay for this opportunity. I had to earn this opportunity. And it is worth it. But you have to survive the mid-years. And which of these do you think, number 1, number 2, or number 3, is the part that most businesses fail? Who thinks it's in number 1? Who thinks it's in number 2? Who thinks it's in number 3? It's number 2. Most businesses fail within the first 3 years. In fact, 80% of businesses fail within the first 3 years. Are there any questions about the map? Okay. The last mistake, opening too many stores too quickly. You can grow too quickly. So what ends up happening, classic, I get a client who says, Lee, we're getting ready to open the first cafe. It's taken us 2 years. We thought it was going to take a year. We've just been offered our second location. I'm like, stop. Immediately say no. No. We're masters at this now. We know how to do this. It'll be super easy. Yeah, and now your job is learning how to sell. Your job is learning how to grow a business. That's the next map you're on. 3 years. If you're opening a cafe, you are not allowed to open another cafe for the first 3 years. And you are supposed to, I want you to use that 3 years to learn how to attract customers. I don't care what you do after that. But I don't want anybody in this room to have seen all of this and then thought, well, as long as I can cultivate a community and as long as I can do all of these things to make sure that I can build customers, I can open as many cafes as I want. The journey is going to reveal all the blind spots to you. Over 10 years, you thinking that in the first couple of years you've learned everything that needs to be learned, you know how to open one cafe. Opening in a different suburb is a whole new set of rules. So please avoid doing this. Now, we have 40 seconds left. So we're not going to have this conversation. This was because we started too late. And I don't want to disrespect the next speaker by finishing late. But let's have 5 minutes of questions. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Do we have a microphone?
Can you able to hear me? Here.
Yes, go ahead.
Suppose if I'm focusing on the specialty instant coffees, like which has been very leastly that is been marketed today. So if I want to compete with the global market where the cafes have established their own communities, so how can I build the communities there that can compete with the existing communities that has been already established? Suppose like if I take example of UK, they have Costa. If I take an example in Japan, they have Blue Bottle. So each country has their own specific cafes that has already got the good communities. So how can I develop a new community that can compete with the existing one in their country?
Why would it compete?
Because I want to like build a market for that.
So building a market doesn't need to compete with another market. Find a problem that you can solve and build a community around that and solve a legitimate problem that exists in the market. You don't have to compete with anybody. Everybody's going to end up competing with you. Solve a problem. Find something that nobody else is fixing and a community will build around it. But make it a legitimate problem. So for example, if you are, right now, the cost of living crisis, solve a problem for customers that's related to the cost of living crisis and just focus on that lane. if it's not something that other people are solving. And then you can build a community around that. Another way that you can approach that, find out what your community, even if it's 10 people, find out what you're all passionate about. But when you approach community from the perspective of competing, your energy is now focused outside of yourself. Your energy is always going to be always going to be outward. It's not going to be on growing. It's not going to be on what do we need? What are we building? Competition is not a bad thing. But community and competition, now that's got a different flavor about it. It's no longer about the community. It's about the people outside of the community. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Your thoughts on functional coffee.
Functional coffee.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand what functional coffee is?
Yeah. Navar,
Noir? Yes.
does flavored coffee, yeah?
Okay.
Banana and coffee, strawberry and
The
coffee.
infused coffees.
Infused coffee.
Yeah.
But coffee to digest better, to feel better, to get rid of a headache or anything.
Coffee
of
with
those-
turmeric in it.
Coffee.
With turmeric in it, for example.
Or whatever, but for a function
Yeah.
rather than a taste or a flavor.
Okay.
Have you seen initiatives, being a podcaster, a well-known podcaster and traveling around the world, have you seen any efforts in that direction?
I have seen people try to do that. So, for example, where people are adding mushrooms to coffee. So reishi mushrooms, lion's mane mushroom, they add them to coffee, they brew them together. These are very super niche markets that can be successful, but what happens is they're mostly about hype. And anything that is built around hype is going to do this, and then it's going to level off. So I would recommend in that situation, and please, just for the record, this is not consulting advice or anything like that, but if you are building products that are super niche, make them a part of a product range so that you have super niche products and your bread and butter. And these are these S-curves that we keep talking about that are built on top of each other, right? Did that answer your question, sir?
Okay. One other question, not connected. What are some of the trends that you see? I think yesterday we heard cold brew is increasing at 27%.
Okay.
But again, it would be a smaller base for it to increase more rapidly. But is that a trend you see? And what are the other trends you see related to coffee?
I very much appreciate this question because it allows me to talk about something called data and trends. And the data that is published around trends. Who do you think publishes these trends? Is it scientists? Who thinks it's scientists that publish these trends about markets? Who is it? Who collects this data and who publishes these trends? Again? Marketing companies.
Consultancy companies.
Consultants, marketing companies, not me kinds of consultants, marketing consultants. No disrespect to any marketers in the room, but this is, what I'm about to tell you is very important. There was recently a survey that said that cold brew is the fastest growing coffee category in all of America. So I contacted the people who released this report. And I asked them what their sample size was. There are 340 million people in America. They surveyed 1,726 people. So any trend that you hear about from any expert that's on a stage that's telling you that cold brew is going to be the next thing, the first question that you should be asking yourself is, what agenda do they have? Get your own data. Go do your own R&D. Find marketing people that are data-based, not they throw something against the wall and see what's going to stick. They need you to believe their narrative. Don't do it. We're going for the long build. We're going for the slow build. We're going for the legitimate build. Businesses don't stay alive for 5 generations by following this kind of rubbish. I'm not saying that trends aren't great. I'm just saying don't bank on them. And find out if the data is real before you do it. It may be real in some parts. I'm sure there's some parts where these 1,700 whatever are drinking cold brew. But are you sure that the people who'd answered that survey are the same kind of people that would turn up to your roastery or your cafe? So just think about that. We have time for 2 more questions.
Just continuing, what are the trends you see, please?
I'm not going to answer that because this is being recorded and that's going to end up becoming things that people talk about because I'm somebody in the coffee world, and I apologize, but we can talk about it afterwards. I'm not somebody who wants to give credence to trends. So, 2 more questions. Yes, sir. Yes, the 4 roasters that I was talking about. Yes, during the...
If you are a roaster that's participating,
If my customers give me that another roasters give me at say around 600 rupees a kilo and you are charging 650, and the third roaster again he said I'll give you at 550. So what the first roaster should do? Should cut the cost, reduce the price.
Right.
What we should do to survive in the market?
So this is
competitive market.
Okay, so the question here is, I appreciate the question, sir, and I get this from a lot of people. If there is a predatory pricing situation being engaged in, and your business is either roaster 1, roaster 2, or roaster 3, and then roaster 4 comes in and undercuts you, what should you do? The answer is not a simple one, it's complicated. But the first thing I tell people is let them go. Let your customers go. Let your customers go. Because guaranteed, roaster number 4, a long line in a roaster 100 is coming. And so that customer who has gone to roaster number 4, it's only a matter of time before that roaster goes out of business, because roaster 5 and roaster 6 and roaster 7, it's a spiral to the bottom. That customer is going to come back knocking. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that we jumped ship. We learnt our mistake. Can we come back? And you're going to say, yes, you can come back, but now you don't get a line of credit. Now, if you want my coffee, for the next 6 months, you're going to have to pay for it upfront. They have to earn the right to be your customer again because they broke the loyalty.
But in some cases, the roaster usually cut down the prices and they give it to the customer to retain the customer.
But they're going to go out of business because they cannot survive. They're not giving the same quality product that you're giving. If they can then jump to roaster number 4, who is 100% giving them a crappier product than what you're giving, that cafe then has to deal with their customers who no longer want to come to their company and drink their coffee because the coffee is no longer good enough. It's a cycle, right? And this is why I'm saying don't engage in the cycle because it breaks the whole economy. Let them go. They'll come back. Your job is to make sure that you have enough working capital and a customer acquisition plan so that as they go, you've got a pipeline of leads coming back in to take them their place. And that's when you hire a consultant to help you figure that out. One more question. Komal, who is the question from? We're done? Okay. Okay. No problem. Folks, that's the end of it. If you want to have a conversation with me, I will be out there. Thank you very much. Just very, very quickly, did we reach our success markers? Hands up if you feel that this was, like you got a lot out of this. Excellent. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This was a big deal for me, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Safar, for this wonderful session.
I will talk. Map It Forward. The Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward is the podcast. But I just don't want to be disrespectful to. Hold on. There's the barcode for the podcast. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much. I now request Ms. Komal Sable, who's a founder.